Well, hello everybody. Welcome to episode 54 of Studio 8.1. This is the VODCAST with myself, Jarvis Todd, the publisher of Telemedia Magazine, Telemedia News, Telemedia Online, all things telemedia, and my old mate, the editor up there, Paul Skeldon, the brains behind the operation, the guy who sifts through all the news from the industry and comes up with three or four nuggets for us to have a slightly deeper dive into over the next 25 minutes or so. For any of you that don't know, telemedia is the advertising, marketing of value-added services, mobile value-added services, premium content, how to generate more in-app billing, how those services are delivered, where they're really red hot, what clever platform operators sit underneath all of that and make the payment solutions available for all of those high tech, on the move, tech savvy, tech hungry consumers who are growing at a rate of knots across the world. We also run World Telemedia, which is coming up in Marbella on the 6th to the 8th of October, and we'll give you a little bit more information about that now. So, without further ado, hello, Paul. How are you, mate?
Hello, mate. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm sorry I missed last week. I'm sure everybody was desperate to know what to do on a Wednesday morning without us. But anyway, we're back now. I was in Dubai, as you know, at the Telecom World Middle East show, and I will give you a little bit more news on that one later on. Let me tell you what we're going to cover over the next few minutes. We've got some news from our good friends Empello, compliance specialists, anti-fraud specialists, and they have produced their annual review for 2023. Given where they are in the market, there's going to be some very good information that you are going to want to hear about, which obviously they are privy to and they are sharing with the industry for everyone's benefit. We're then going to, we haven't talked about CPaaS so much for a
No,
while.
not for a
Um,
while. No.
but we're going to combine the CPaaS world with the AI world in a little smorgasbord, and we got some research from our friends at Juniper Research, and they've got something to tell us about how CPaaS is set to surge in the enriched media revenue. So that's obviously good news. We've also got some stop press big news on the Euros, which is I just found out about 5 minutes ago. Um, Depending on when you're watching this, the Euros are just about to launch in a couple of days' time. I wouldn't bother to watch because England are going to win very comfortably. So you heard it here first. But obviously, sports content is an area of great interest to the telemedia industry. So it seems appropriate that we should identify some of the exciting telemedia developments, revenue opportunities, and news around one of the biggest sporting events on the planet. We're going to start wrapping things up by talking about. We've got an announcement. We've got a birthday, haven't we, Paul? We've got a birthday.
We
Which
have got a birthday, yeah.
one of the
And it,
leading lights in our industry is celebrating a birthday. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I'm going to finish up with a few thank yous and a little bit of an update on what I got up to in Dubai. Thankfully, unusually, it didn't involve me getting horrendous sunburn. So as you can see, so let's crack on, Paul. The first story, as I referred to earlier, is about Impello's release of their annual review. So not so much a story as an extremely interesting insight into the global landscape, the landscape that in terms of compliance and in terms of anti-fraud across the world, and how particularly with DCB advertising, where there are problems, where things are improving, and I think just as a sort of quick summary, it looks as though one of the interesting developments here has been how the changes in regulation actually affect compliance. So it seems to be a real a moving target, which in
mm,
itself
yeah.
is presenting or will present a problem for anyone that's promoting value-added services into any particular markets, which I guess is why it's so important to have a very strong partner like Empello or MCP or Avena in your corner to ensure that you stay out of trouble. So, do you want to pick out some of the highlights from this particular review?
Well, yes. I mean, Empello does this sort of state of the sort of industry report every year. So this one's just come out for 2023. It's a huge and wide-ranging document. So obviously, there's way more in it than we can do justice with here. So we'll put the link below. Do go and download it because it's well worth a read. The sort of highlights, I think, really are that compliance across sort of advertising for VAS services, carrier billing backed services, actually fell from 93% in 2022 to 88% in 2023. However, it's not sort of as bad as perhaps it sounds. As you say, Jarvis, that a lot of it is down to how the regulation of things have changed. And how particularly things like moderation on X, which was formerly Twitter, obviously when Elon Musk took it over and turned it into X rather than Twitter, they took away the moderation. So that's had an impact on sort of how non-compliant ads are getting out there. There's also, as I'll come to in a minute, some stuff about banner ads, these sort of responsive dynamic ads, these RDAs, that is also causing some compliance issues, but sort of by accident. But just to sort of pick out some of the highlights, the compliance rate has dropped slightly. That's been down to some changes in regulation in the Middle East and LATAM. That sort of has resulted in sort of fluctuations in how compliant or not ads have been. So I think overall it's sort of dropped a bit, but I think it's been more of a sort of roller coaster ride through the year. Some of the extreme cases that Empello found is that one particular carrier's compliance, which they don't name, thankfully, fell from 83% last year to 8% this year.
Yeah.
But again, this is down to these banner guideline changes, which I shall come to in a minute. We've also seen that the level of compliance has fallen in Europe, again, driven by France and Spain. And we've also found some improvements across South Africa. Has come up from 63 to 87% compliance compared to France, which has dropped from 98 to 88. It was a lowish bar to begin with. I think, and also if you look at some of the fresh markets that Empello has looked at, including Angola and Jordan, there's extraordinarily high levels of non-compliance, but they're new markets. And I think that sort of also drags this average down. Places like Nigeria, compliance is starting to rise. So, there are some good and bad bits. I think so. Overall, this average sort of is pulled down by some bad bits, some bits of change regulation. But overall, it's still doing remarkably well. It's way better than it used to be. The thing I wanted to sort of pull out here, I mean, like I say, there's an awful lot in this report. It really goes into a huge amount of detail. I really suggest that sort of anyone connected with this market downloads it and reads it if you haven't already. But there's these RDA banner ads, which are the sort of banner ads that appear. You can have two types of banner ads, ones that are static, that are just designed, have all the information they need in them, set size, and there you go. Increasingly, MVAS providers like to use these RDAs, these sort of reactive adverts that sort of position and change their shapes and dimensions depending on what device and where on the page or in the viewing field they appear. And that's all great, and they're much more adaptable, and they can be changed content-wise in terms of time of day, kind of device, location, all sorts of things. It's a brilliant idea. However, there are issues with some bits of it getting cut off sometimes by how it is displayed. There's strong guidelines from Google as to where you put this information, but sometimes it doesn't just quite work, and that makes some of these banners non-compliant. And this, if you read the Empello report, is behind a lot of the sort of drop in compliance, is that sort of accidentally banner ads are coming up that aren't as compliant as they should be, or are having bits of cut off. Right. And that's something that needs to be tackled. And interesting, there's another story up on our site this week. It might be from late last week, where MCP Insight and AIM, the industry body, are joining forces to create a working group to look at how to overcome this. So it's clearly become quite an important issue. The industry is tackling it, and I guess that hopefully we'll see in next year's Empello report for 2024 that this banner ad issue at least isn't affecting compliance to the same degree. Certainly not in the UK. I suspect what happens in the UK will feed out then into the rest of the world.
Is there any indication as to what the solution might be?
Not really. I think it's more down to sort of how you make the sort of guidelines for where you put the information within those adverts, what that information is, and I think really just sort of over test every conceivable way it might display. But I guess that's for the working group to sort of come to the conclusion as to how you do it. It might also come down to an issue of how you measure compliance, because it might be that you might have to just think, well, the basis of the advert is compliant, just the way it's been displayed this time isn't. But again, we'll have to wait and see.
Right. Well, I mean, it just goes to I highlight the importance of having not only a trusted partner for anti-fraud solutions like Empello, who you will be able to meet at World Telemedia in October, along with MCP, Avena, and many of the others. But it also goes to show how important it is to be working with an advertising and marketing company that is really across this kind of issue. And again, companies like MediaXO, Mesh Ads, Mabipium, we've got a range of very high level marketing specialists. I think it also highlights, particularly as the industry has emerged as being a truly cross-border, business is truly cross-border in telemedia, how important it is to have local partners. And that's been a message which has been constant, I think, throughout the last kind of 20 years that we've been doing that. And I think no more so than now, where so many, as you said, pointed out, there seems to be new markets coming up all the time.
Well, yes, and if you look at their data as well, you can see that sort of some markets are just harder to work in than others, and I think that that, like you say, the local partner thing is imperative. You have to really make sure you have one, I think, in each country to some degree, because if you look at Empello's data, it is that sort of granular, and some places are, even if you just take sort of North Africa, some countries are way more compliant than others, and I think you need to know each individual country and have experts on the ground there to help you, as you say.
Yeah. I guess also, unless you're enormous, the challenge is probably to not spread yourselves too thin, but that's not for us to say. That's depending on the particular partner strategy that you happen to be working with. But really interesting story, I think. And thank you to Empello for producing. Well, thank you to everyone for producing these the reports that come across our desks, and hopefully us highlighting them gives you a brief insight, but you will be able to find all the links on our website to any of the reports and the research that we reference, and certainly with regards to the Empello report or annual review, I would certainly recommend, as you say, that people should go and have a look at that. Let's move on to good old CPaaS. We haven't talked about this for a while. What was interesting here is that the report, I think, comes from Juniper Research. It's Global CPaaS Market 2024 to 2028. They're predicting that CPaaS rich media revenues will generate $10 billion globally by 2028. Do you think we'll still be here in 2028, Paul? Let's hope
but
so.
You and I personally, or society in general? I would like to think. I'd like to think so.
Let's hope so. I
plan to be. If nothing else, to see whether this comes true.
Yeah, well, that's right. Well, and the sort of headline here is that Apple's adoption of RCS later this year, along with SMS termination rates rising, is set to see rich media traffic from CPaaS become something of a cash cow.
Mm,
It will also be a boon to RCS, but it's conversational AI that will be making the real difference. So we're merging AI here with RCS and CPaaS, Apple's involvement. All in all, it makes for a very nice recipe. Now, before we go into this in a little bit more detail, it is. A couple of weeks ago, I think I made the huge announcement that after 5 years, I had bought a new telephone and upgraded my Samsung from a 10 to a 24, which is, a long time. Now, I then said to you, quite interestingly, that it was my first opportunity when I clicked on my messaging app. Lo and
mm.
behold, I was very, very excited about having RCS enabled messaging. Now, fast forward, and I'd probably say about 6, 7, 8 weeks. Guess how many RCS messages I've received, Paul?
I reckon it's probably none.
It's exactly right. I've literally received not one single rich content message on my phone. So come on, people, what's going on?
Uh, well, I think no, you're right. I think that Apple's embrace of RCS, which they did actually sort of acknowledge this week at their worldwide developers conference. Though they mentioned it so briefly in passing, it was almost like they went, "Oh, yes." It was amusingly sort of underplayed. However, I think it is significant because it is going to drive more people to use it. And I think even though more people use Android phones worldwide than they do Apple ones, for businesses, they're going to go, "Oh, we can do it on Apple, so we'll do it." So I think you will start to see, probably towards the end of the year, early next year, you might start to get one or two dropping into your rich media messaging box on your lovely new phone.
Right.
Uh,
Okay.
the point, I think, of Juniper's research and what makes it interesting is that RCS is going to pick up, and that is going to drive sort of rich media traffic, particularly from businesses. But really, I think what's interesting is it's the conflation of that and social media traffic and OTT messaging traffic, and increasingly the use of video therein across all those channels as a sort of business messaging tool. And it's going to be that, I think, that's going to drive this revenue up, because businesses are going to start to spend more on getting really short form marketing video material out to people. So it's a bit like the sort of boom we've seen in YouTube Shorts and TikTok and Snapchat and all that kind of thing. It's become, it's so obviously got such a compelling format that marketers are starting to look at it as a tool that they can use, and we're going to see more and more of it. And I think, interesting, going back to the stuff we talked about last time about this commerce media idea, where businesses with first party customer data are going to start to sell advertising space like inventory. They're going to need to have things that really stand out. The creative side of brands are going to have content that really stands out, because it's going to be so competitive. And that means really compelling video material. And so I think that altogether is going to drive this sort of uptake in CPaaS, because you're going to need these platforms, these CPaaS platforms, to deliver these kind of messages from businesses. So that's what I think underpins this growth. And I think, well, it's impossible to know that whether it will really be worth 10 billion by 2028. It is going to see that level of growth that Juniper is predicting, because it's just going to be how people get marketed to.
So do you think, as let's say, we have many VAS providers, content aggregators, merchants that come to World Telemedia, and you're saying you think that things are going to really pick up by the end of the year. So would you expect to see conversations around using RCS to market,
Yeah,
traditional telemedia sort of entertainment services, or
I think so.
any value-added service? You think that that's going to become a media
Yeah,
channel that people are going to be focusing on?
I think what you're going to hear is that the value-added services that need to have marketing content are going to try and do compelling short-form video content, and they're going to use then every channel available to market that. And I think as part of that, of course, it's going to be banner ads, it's going to be all those other things that we just sort of talked about around the Empello report. But I think that you're also going to start finding them sort of offering to, the ability for brands to use RCS and social and all of that. And then they're going to have to work with the CPaaS providers to be able to deliver that content across all those different platforms.
Presumably, of course, relatively easy to keep those sorts of advertising campaigns compliant, right? Because you don't have those same limits in terms of space and stuff.
I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, screen size sort of differ vaguely, don't they, from phone to phone? But basically, they're
Not
the same.
really, not so much.
Yeah, as long as you get your sort of key sort of information and T's and C's and all that kind of stuff in the middle, so it's not cut off, then conceivably, yes, that is more compliant.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's not going to kill off banners and all the other things, but I think it is going
No.
to be something we're going to hear a lot more talk around being used, because I think we're at this sort of place where we're splitting off into being a lot more of this rich media marketing. And I think, again, like I say, it ties back to this sort of commerce media and retail media sort of idea, where other websites, like every site becomes a sort of commercial place where you can advertise if it's got a customer base of people watching it who are likely to click on it, and you make those adverts personalized based on the data those companies have. So yeah, I think that's where this growth comes from. They also talk about SMS. I think, yes, of course, like rates of, sort of business rates for SMS are going up. That will drive up some of the value. But I think really it's this rich content through things like RCS that's going to really drive it. And of course, AI then plays a role because it helps you create content. It helps you understand the data and target things properly. So yeah, again, I don't know. I always say this every week. We're at this moment where everything's coming together, and I think, again, we're at a moment where all of these things are coming together. I think it's going to be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what those VAS providers at World Telemedia are talking about. Whether they're talking about this now or whether it's next year. But I think we'll hear when we do video interviews with people at World Telemedia, we're going to start hearing more mention of this sort of stuff.
So all the more reason to get your plane ticket booked right now.
Absolutely.
Whilst it's cheap. And remember that the key dates are the 6th, 7th and 8th of October, if you didn't catch that earlier. I mean, on World Telemedia and with regards to marketing and marketing strategies, if people haven't been to wtevent.co.uk, sorry, .com, I think I'd know after all these years, and you go to the conference section, you'll see that Mesh Ads, our dear friend Chris Hemsler, who did a fantastic session in partnership with Google last year, has committed to conference sponsorship again. So Chris will be running a session in Marbella, which would be sort of A to Z deep dive into all the key trends in marketing and how to get the your marketing strategies on point. And I would suggest, there's probably going to be some questions surrounding messaging and RCS in particular, if you are to be believed, Paul. Now, in terms of coming together, it is, of course, the week when the European Football Championships will be launching, and that's coming up on Friday. Now, just tying that in a little bit with some of the takeaways I got from my trip to Telecom World Middle East. You'll remember, perhaps, that last year, Telecoming and Digital Virgo did quite a few sessions with operators talking about the MENA region and how important sports content, and very specifically, I suppose, or even more specifically, football being top of the tree, and how important that is to driving mobile commerce and entertainment services across the mobile ecosystem. And of course, that requires the telemedia value chain, of which we represent. Now, given that football is ever present, given that sport is so compelling across what's so nice about it, and again, Telecoming made this point, is it's compelling for a 9, 10, 11-year-old and a 89, 10 or 11-year-old. So it really spans the full kind of age demographic. Now we've got the Euros coming up, as I said. What is the big news with regards to this fantastic sporting festival?
Well, it was just an interesting survey that Amdocs have carried out amongst UK consumers, but I think it probably is quite representative, probably of pretty much of sort of Western Europe, if not elsewhere, as to sort of how people are going to watch the Euros and what they expect from technology and what they'd like to see. And interestingly, um, it reveals that actually more people are probably going to watch it on a streaming service than on a live TV broadcast. I
Wow.
don't think that's probably a massive surprise to
Well,
some. I mean, I watch TV even if it's live TV via the streaming platform,
so
so I
you don't,
watch it
so
on.
that doesn't, that doesn't mean on a phone. It means you just mean across.
Doesn't necessarily mean on a phone. However, it does also include watching it on a phone or an iPad and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's the significant thing is that sort of across all those age groups. I mean, obviously younger people, sort of 70% of 16 to 24-year-olds say they're going to watch it on a streaming platform. Uh, it doesn't go into the device, but that'll be across all sorts of devices. So younger people tend to be more streaming, but even those over 55, 21% of them are also going to be watching it on streaming platforms. So actually, quite a large proportion of everybody is going to watch it via streaming. And I suspect it is going to be not just me watching it on, ITVX on the screen in the living room. I'll probably be forced to watch some of it on my iPad or my computer because not everybody wants to enjoy the football to the full extent to which I shall be doing.
Mm,
Um,
they're
so
not
I
to be
think I think
trusted.
I think it's in that in itself is interesting that streaming is going to be the way forward, and that does mean on various devices and in various locations, and sort of some of it will be asynchronous, so it won't be people won't necessarily be watching it live. I think most people will because it's a sort of coming together sort of communal event, but you might well be watching it afterwards. They've also sort of asked what kind of other things consumers would like to have or other ways they'd like to watch the football. And while
Apart
it's
from
not
having
actually going to
a
be,
ticket to the game.
apart from actually having a ticket to the game, well, we'll come to that in a minute because there's another interesting survey I read separately about that. But a third of them, 29%, so nearly a third of UK football fans would like to watch using virtual reality. And no, I know. And 24% would like to watch it with augmented reality, so they can add things to what they're watching, like player information and stuff like that. Um, that's fairly similar in Germany also. And sorry, I'm just reading it off there. It's literally appeared just before we came on air. Um, and many of them want to have some of those things, particularly the augmented reality, available to them while they're actually in the stadium watching the
Oh,
match.
my word.
So yeah, that's starting to become a really kind of is coming to be part of this, and we heard it from all sorts of people who we've had at the show, haven't we, over the years, that this is coming, this is coming. I think it is almost here, and we might well start to see more of that. The other thing I read, I can't remember who carried out the research, but I read it just in the ordinary mainstream news. But one of the biggest concerns that advertisers have with the Euros is that younger people's attention spans are so low now that they don't watch the entire match
Just put
because
10
it
minutes.
just it takes too long. So while they have it on, they're engaging in all these other things at the same time. So they're sort of second and third screening while the match is on.
Which
And
makes
so,
even the when I said earlier about the consumer being a moving target for a merchant
yeah,
or advertiser is truer now than ever before.
well, quite. And you've got to understand, like, is this person who's now flicking through sort of TikTok, are they actually also watching the football with one eye and TikTok with the other? And from an ad serving point of view, you've got to try and understand that so that you can start to maybe serve them up your relevant football-ish related advertising in TikTok while they're watching the match. So that is a real challenge
Yeah, yeah.
for advertising and marketing. But I think also, this whole idea that people are watching it on the stream platforms also is partly down to this lack of attention that some people have, in that they'll stream it, but they'll be doing other things while they're streaming it. So they'll picture in picture on their screen whilst doing like multiple things. And I think that starts to present a real challenge for how you present these sporting events. How you add on stuff like augmented reality probably helps with that attention span thing, because it gives them something else to do actually while watching it that's related, and that throws up all sorts of new marketing challenges and opportunities. So yeah, so it's a fairly sort of standard survey of things you'd expect, but I think some of the things it throws up make you sort of really kind of think about how differently people are going to consume this particular tournament and what opportunities and challenges that then present.
Well, thank you for that piece of stop press news. I mean, I grimaced a little bit there because, it does make me laugh that a couple of old codgers like us who can't possibly understand or relate to why anybody really would want to use some of the extremely exciting technology that will no doubt be monetized within our very sector, like augmented reality and virtual reality. I mean, not least, we've talked in the past about some of the fantastic content and services that Sound Media have been producing and using that tech.
Mm,
But what I was actually going to say before we started talking about the consumer becoming a bit of a moving target, and harder than ever easier than ever to reach through multiple channels, but harder than ever to actually engage because they're not sort of focused on one particular area. And it's a good point you make about augmented reality being a way of being able to sort of focus the attention somehow. I mean, as I
mm,
say, it's not something I'd want to do. So I was gonna say that one of the reasons I think why the telemedia industry has expanded is as this sort of the size of the market for high tech consumers that are willing to pay for and consume services using their phone, and not necessarily us. Um, when you then mentioned that augmented reality would perhaps be compelling for them at a game, I sort of, as I say, I grimaced. But then, of course, I thought back to just recently when I was at a gig, or in fact, if you think about any gig that you've been to in the last sort of 5 years, if you're standing anywhere near the back, all you will see is a sea of mobile phones in the air, right? So, but at that
mm.
point, the user is watching the gig, but they are actually watching the gig quite often, whether they're recording it or photographing it, but they tend to end up watching the bloody thing through their phones, right?
Yeah,
It's not a very, very big step between doing that at a gig and then all of a sudden watching sport through your phone and getting something
yeah,
back. And I suspect that augmented reality at gigs will probably be one of the first applications because, as I say, the consumers, all the audience is already doing, watching a lot of the gig through their phone. So
mm,
it's I find it baffling, but of course I'm celebrating and delighting in it because it means great things for most of the or well, everyone in the telemedia industry, because adopting this kind of technology and enhancing services is surely what they're all doing, and that will continue to expand the market. But I'm not the customer, and I still find it hard to quite believe, but as I say, I think the writing's on the wall. It's going to happen, right?
absolutely. Yeah, I think as well. What the challenge is for them to engage people like you and I who don't think we are the customer.
It'll never
And I think
happen.
the thing is that they might, you might find things happening around you that you don't even notice are happening.
Interesting.
That's the goal. I think I was talking to someone the other day about this, that we need to move from in kind of this commerce media thing. We've done the science, now we move on to the art of doing it,
Oh,
and
okay.
it's all about delivering it so that you don't know it's happening. So I think yes, augmented reality of watching a gig or a match gives you overlays of interesting things, but I think also it's going to just pick out little bits, possibly off the advertising signage or whatever, that just flashes up a little thing like click here
Yeah,
and have a drink delivered to your seat, or
yeah, yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of
No.
thing. Or it'll I was thinking about this the other day at a gig, funnily enough, that kind of everyone's got their phones in the air, as you say, and I was waving my phone about trying to take some photographs, and it accidentally took a photograph of my almost empty beer glass. You think what that should do is recognise that and order me another beer that I
Yeah,
then have already paid for, that I then just queue up and pick up. So it's those sorts of things. I think out there somewhere are all these really subtle things that are going to happen, and because that's the key to this is how you monetize it, and that's through marketing, and it's how marketing intelligently uses these opportunities so that you're not just bombarded with crappy adverts. You get something that you don't even know is an advert, and that's the sort of holy grail of this. And I think we're moving ever closer to that happening.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Well, talking of footy, soccer, football for those of our viewers around the world. One company in particular who has been working very closely with a charity in the UK, Soccer Aid, and it's been very much responsible for generating huge amounts of premium SMS revenues for a range of fantastic media companies like ITV, Bauer, Global Radio, Channel 5, Comic Relief, of course, Children in Need, Cancer Research. I am, of course, talking about the mighty Phonics. Great friends of ours, a stalwart of the telemedia industry, and we're celebrating, or we would like to extend our congratulations because they are celebrating their 10th anniversary. It's a 10th birthday. I'm not sure if it's today, whether it was last week, or maybe it would be yesterday. I don't think it really matters. But we did just want to extend our congratulations to Phonics. What a fantastic company they have become. For those that don't know, they're based in the UK, specialist in broadcast media, charity, and digital entertainment. Started mainly from the boys at O2 who'd been doing interactive, became mobile interactive billing, MIG. That's right.
Yep. Okay, MIG. Yep.
Then got bought, and then a couple of the directors set up, some of the leading lights set up Phonics back in, when was that?
2014.
2014. So they could have worked that out. They floated on AIM in 2020, and they currently have a market cap of 230 million, and they now handle over 250 million quid's worth of premium SMS and DCB payments. What's great about Phonics is that, they were one of, I think, for us as a media company that wanted to see the telemedia industry really sort of grow and evolve. Phonics became a great provider of fantastic news with regards to how companies that come from the telemedia sector could engage with big brands, big media brands, and really the DCB and premium SMS, which had a bit of a checkered reputation prior to that, really illustrated how it could be a force for good. And 10 years later, some of these charities, some of these media events that Phonics have worked on have become incredibly successful, and no more so than because premium SMS and the mobile phone is the kind of primary device for generating the calls to action that these causes or these media companies wanted, and that they very much proved that the secret to success was using mobile tech, mobile billing, mobile messaging. So well done to Phonics for making 10 years, and here's to the next 10 years. I haven't got a drink. We should have done cocktails.
Have some coffee.
So well done, guys. Well, I asked Rob what was next on the agenda, and he said more countries, expanding the options around OTT messaging. Of course, he mentioned RCS, and he said that he wanted to embrace the exciting world of alternative payments because, as we said, DCB is the kind of the core of telemedia, but we've now talking about a range of alternative payment mechanisms being provided by telemedia companies because, of course, the more payment options you offer, the more chance you've got of engaging and onboarding more people. And then he said, yes, also all, and the point he makes, all using the mobile number as the means to engage. And I suppose that really sort of sums up what one of the kind of commonalities really across the telemedia sector. But what did occur to me that, obviously more countries are on the horizon. So, you'd think you'd see a bit more of Phonics at World Telemedia, wouldn't you, Paul? It was,
We'd like to think so,
I'm
yes.
really
I don't know.
I'm sure they must have a massive sponsorship lined up to attract all those other partners.
I would have thought so, particularly sort of in light of what we've been talking about how sort of value-added services and advertising and marketing have moved on. I'd have thought that they have a key role to play in delivering that as well.
My phone's on
their
silent. It's
expertise
probably
in
ringing
payments
right now.
I think, I mean, I'll be very surprised if Rob's not on the, Not on the phone or writing you that email right now.
Right
Let's
now.
hope so.
Anyway, well done, everyone. Well done to all the boys and girls. Oh, there it is. It is ringing now. It's ringing. Right. And listen, finally, I just want to say thank you to everybody that supported our last minute 8.1 Live Dubai meetup. It really was an incredible joint effort. We came up with the idea about 4 days before Telecom World Middle East. You know, as we've said before, the show is of kind of peripheral value, and of the 2,000, probably 10-15% were telemedia players. And we decided at the last minute that we would try and get them all out, get them together on the beach. And but it needed to be paid for. So I want to just say thank you so much to the fantastic sponsors that we got. You know, just we're so generous at the last minute. That was Moby Hits, MT2, Sam Media, Media XO, who also, by the way, are a one-stop shop for global marketing success! Exclamation mark. So make sure you talk to Nia over at Media XO about marketing strategies, and maybe even find out what he's got to say about RCS. Obviously, the magnificent Avena. And finally, but last but not least, Mobile Arts, or MobiBox Softech, who, interestingly enough, Paul, announced this week that they've opened a second office in Bhubaneswar, which is India. I'm sorry about the pronunciation, but it's basically India's #1 smart city and hub for IT. So Mobile Arts are expanding across India. And no doubt they'll be sponsoring their own IPL franchise very, very soon. So if you want to see what you missed, please go to the Telemedia 8.1 site. You'll see a fantastic gallery of everybody networking, doing business, and eagerly talking telemedia strategies on the beach in Dubai. And you know, who knows, Paul? Maybe that's the incubator for a more formal event in 2025.
Well, let's hope so. Let's hope so.
But that's all I can say for now.
Sounds good. Excellent
Okay,
stuff.
well, listen, thank you very much for your time. Thanks everyone for watching. We will be back in a couple of weeks' time, by which time England will be very much in the latter stages of the Euros and, you know, sweeping aside all
Absolutely.
for them. So until next time, thank you very much. Please remember, do drop us a line if you've got some news, you've got a good story to tell. We always, you know, love to hear from you, and any comments, please, you know, keep an eye on us on LinkedIn as well. So until next time, thanks
Okay.
very much. See you soon.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.